Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's Connect Group Bible study. Today we're going to be looking at John chapter 18, the passage that Priscilla spoke on Sunday. And you might want to have it open in front of you. This is John chapter 18, verses 33 to 40. This is Jesus on trial before Pilate. Let's read it together. Pilate then went back inside to the palace and summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. And with this he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. As always, let's pause there to discuss. What did you like about this passage? What did you find hard to receive and why? What stood out to you? What questions do you have and what can you apply? Have a discussion around those questions to begin with. Okay, great. So the question we're going to be thinking about today is, how do we use truth? And I'd love to point you towards this brilliant podcast. You might have come across the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast. He's a solicitor, businessman, and also a pastor in America, and seems to get the best people in the world on his podcast. It's amazing. But he interviewed a few weeks back Adam Grant, who you might know from a lot of different books. Adam Grant actually doesn't call himself a Christian. He would say he's an agnostic. But they have a fascinating discussion and really land on some of the things that we're going to talk about today in this whole area of truth and how truth gets used. And I will quote from them as we go on. But what they do really well is ask, how does this land in the workplace and in how we live our lives? So have that in mind. So Jesus has been arrested and he's being put on trial before Pilate. And we read that Pilate went back inside, summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Now, I don't know if you've ever been sort of interviewed, or somebody's annoyed at you and they ask you questions, maybe in the workplace or maybe at home. And my first response, the wrong response, is often to kind of go back at them and be like, "Who do you think you are?" And if we think that, how much more could Jesus have legitimately said that? You know, Jesus didn't say, "Who the heck do you think you are?" Who are you to talk to me like this way and ask me questions? But he doesn't. Jesus humbles himself to be put on trial. He submits himself to this process, even though this process is laughable, and as if you explore this, you'll see that it's totally corrupt and unjust. And in a way, every sermon is a trial, and it's like Jesus presenting himself, offering himself. I'm thinking of the line, "I'm just a girl standing before a boy asking if you'll love him," and it's not quite as soppy as that, but it's Jesus presenting himself and saying, "Am I Lord? Am I your Lord?" He offers himself. And Jesus responds not by criticizing Pilate, but says, "Is that your own idea?" he asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" And elsewhere we find that the priests have told him all this information. Now what's really interesting is when the word is questioned, the word asks a question. Truth asks a lot of questions. In the Gospels, Jesus is asked 187 questions and he asks 307 questions. And his most common question is, "Haven't you read?" So again, it's a question, but puts authority and responsibility back on the person asking the question in the first place. Pilate is obviously a bit annoyed and says, am I a Jew? Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. So it's like, your own people brought you to me. Like, you're in trouble, mate. Like, how have you annoyed them? What have you done? What is it you've done? And we're going to pause there and ask a few questions to begin with. First of all, what have been questions you had for Jesus that were important for you in the past? Maybe when you first became a Christian, or maybe as you were growing in faith. And the sub-questions to that are, did you get an answer? How were they answered? And are those questions still important to you now? So that's the first question. And the second question is, think of a time someone persuaded you to change your mind. How did they do it? So pause here and discuss those. Okay, well, we're going to take some of those answers into our discussion later on. Jesus responds to Pilate and says this, my kingdom is not of this world. So much of Jesus' teaching is he takes what people say and then he reframes it. He says, look, you think it's this little thing here. Actually, it's this over here. Or sometimes you think it's here, but actually it's over here. And so Pilate is saying, you're a king, right? And Jesus is reframing his understanding of what a king and his kingdom is. My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is from another place. In other words, like the kingdom of Rome is all about the peace of Rome. It's enforced on people. And if you resist, they kill you, or crucify you, or a mixture of other things. But truth, and the Roman truth, is forced on you. But what's fascinating is Jesus doesn't force his truth on us. He doesn't force himself on us. Adam Grant from that podcast said so many people think that knowledge is a weapon to wield when in fact it's a resource to share. And he goes on to say, don't be a logic bully. Like sometimes you can argue like this amazing case and people are like, yeah, I just don't agree. And the way you're doing this makes me want to agree with you even less. Jesus, who had every right to force his truth on us, chooses not to. And that should shape how we think about how we speak to others about the truth of his kingdom. Pilate says, you are a king then. And Jesus said, you say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into this world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And again, this is amazing. It's the edge of death that Jesus reveals the purpose of his birth and his life. And there's something of the cross there that we find our meaning in life as we lay down our life. And Jesus comes into this world to die for us. But also what's interesting is he says, if you are about truth, you're about me. And he points to himself. Tim Keller puts it like this: we're not given a watertight argument, but we're given a watertight person. And that's the thing. So often we want to be able to argue our corner. And actually Jesus doesn't give us watertight arguments. There's always this element of faith. But he gives us this person, himself. And he says, well, look at me. I am who I claim to be. And I live out who I claimed I was. And at every level you will see that I have integrity and hold together. Adam Grant spoke about this. He said, I really take an issue lately with the idea that separate spheres so many people like to talk about. So people will say, whether it's CEO or political candidate, people will say, hey, you know what? I don't really care what they do in their personal life. I'm interested in their professional competency. And he said, that's never made sense to me, because I don't think we walk into the office and suddenly we become a completely different person. And sure enough, there was a study that came out recently showing that men that cheat on their wives are more likely to cheat on their taxes and more likely to cheat when it comes to the company's finances. You don't get to say, I have integrity at work, but I'm a terrible person at home. And Jesus offers himself as this person of integrity who his life is the truth. And his words are part of it. You know, Adam Grant also said the truth as a way of standing up to scrutiny. And Jesus here doesn't defend himself in the way that we might expect. And Pilate says, and this is part of the comedy of John's Gospel, what is truth? What is truth? And he's like, He's standing in front of you. He's literally there. It's a moment of comic irony, and this is a key theme all through John's Gospel. That 25 times this word gets used, from the Word became flesh and was full of grace and truth. Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth," and we're told that grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. And this word here is truth in contrast to falsehood. So this is faithfulness, reliability, trustworthiness, sureness. So this isn't a truth that you can say, oh, objectively that's true. This is a truth that demands that you risk your life on it, that you put your life in its hands to see if it is this truth. It's a relational truth. Now this is the opposite of Pilate's truth, because for Roman truth is power, might is right. The only thing that matters is power and whether or not you can defeat other people. And so what we're going to do, we're just going to explore Pilate's question here. So Pilate asks, what is truth? And let's have a go answering this. Now, hint is, it's Jesus. Sunday school answer. But what does that tell us, therefore, about truth? What is Jesus like? And what does that tell us about truth? And therefore, what does that mean in my relationships, my arguments, my discussions and my posts, place where I want to use truth to leverage my position and to get people to follow me or to go the way that I think is right? So that's the first question. What is truth? And if Jesus is the truth, what does that tell us about how we're supposed to use it? In question 4, this is coming out of if truth is who Jesus is, then lies are going to be one of the most dangerous things. So what are the most pervasive lies in your workplace or in the shows that you watch or the adverts that you see? Okay, I hope you had a really good discussion about that, and we're going to see where this lands in a moment. With that, he went out again to the Jews, and it's like he turned and left. What is truth? Doesn't even give Jesus time to answer the question, even though Jesus is truth standing in front of him. And he says, I find no basis for the charge against him. And it's a weird one, because you're like, well, you haven't really cross-examined him. Like, you haven't really done your job. But he says this, but it's your custom, the Jews, for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. So he's basically saying, I'll do the right thing, but for the wrong reason. And it's like, so often we want to do that. Like, I'll do the right thing, but my heart's not in the right place. The motive is totally wrong. Do you want me to release the King of the Jews? And I think that's going to annoy them anyway, because they're basically, they say he's not the King of the Jews. Later on, they go to commit blasphemy and say we only have the King of Caesar. But obviously for them, God is king. So there's all this going there. It's going to annoy them. But they shout back, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. Now, Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. And the thing is, Barabbas is the guy who fights with a sword to prevent arrest. He is the opposite of Jesus. He is exactly the same. He might think he's fighting for God, but he's fighting in the kingdom of the world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. That is exactly what Barabbas did. He was a murderer. He was a man of violence. He was a man of the sword. He'd been caught in an uprising. And really what they're saying here is, give us the way of the sword, not the way of Jesus. Give us the way where we get to enforce our truth on other people rather than offer it to other people. And this is amazing. You get this amazing contrast between these two ways of living. And what's then amazing is this kind of goes into those lies that we believe. You know, so many of the lies that are pervasive in our workplace, and often, unless we take the time to think about them, we can miss them. But often one of the most pervasive lies are, I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, Jesus condemns me, or salvation is about personal success. But actually what we see is, no, salvation isn't about personal success, it's about a substitute. And you get this amazing thing that Pilate then grants them the request, and Jesus, the innocent one, goes to his death, and Barabbas, the guilty one, goes free. Jesus takes Barabbas's place. There is this incredible painting by a contemporary painting of Jesus and Barabbas, and they're tied together. You can see the shock on Barabbas's face as he is let go. And I think he's drawing from the ideas of the scriptures of the two goats that are set free in the on the Day of Atonement. The one goat is sacrificed and one is allowed to go away. And this is the picture of us, that Jesus comes and he offers his truth for us, and he offers himself in our place. What's amazing as we look at Jesus here in answer to the question, what is truth, is that truth is kind, truth is loving, truth exposes, but it doesn't always expose things in the way we think it'll expose. It doesn't always come directly at us. Sometimes it comes around and mugs us with the truth, but also always brings grace. And the key things to remember in that is that means that we can say hard things in love, but you can't say that are true, but you can't say unkind things in love, because truth is kind. Jesus is kind. Truth is offered to us, not forced on us. And that shapes the way we use truth in our leadership and in our relationships, to be like Jesus, somebody who doesn't go the way of the sword, but goes the way of substituting himself for the least deserving, for the people who are opposite his way. So let's pray. Jesus, we thank you that you offer yourself to us today, and you continue to offer yourself to us, not because of what we deserve, but in spite of what we deserve. And you offer yourself in our place to die in our place. And also, Jesus, wherever there are lies in our life, you offer your truth. And so, Jesus, we ask that now, come Holy Spirit, that you would enlighten us, illuminate where there are lies that we are holding on to. We ask that you would speak your truth in its place, so that we might be free, like Barabbas was set free in your place. Amen. Amen. Have a great time praying for each other now, and see you on Sunday online or in the room, and next week at Connect Group. Goodbye and God bless.